Well, we're going to talk live. Sorry, we're a little late today. I jumped on another podcast. Um, Steve Cully did Husky Huddle, part of Husky Huddle with Julius Williams. We'll post that part as well. I want to cover the UConn game myself, actually. And I thought that game was just a phenomenal game for UConn from a comeback standpoint. So let's talk about some of the things that made a difference in that game. UConn early on really, really struggled in the game, and they struggled moving the ball. They had a hard time gaining yards early in the game, and they gave up a ton of yards early in the game. And one of the things that we talked about was the passing game with UConn on defensively could have an issue. And early in the game, Jalen Kitna was able to complete a lot of passes, and Lee Beebe was able to run for a lot of yards early in the game. And after one quarter, it was 3-3. Let's recap a little bit of that, talk about it. So after one quarter, the game was 3-3. Starting in the second quarter was when things really took off for UAB after kicking a field goal to go up 6-3. UAB really kind of struck back at that point. And let's get a little bit shown here. All right, so UConn was down 6-3 early on, and they really struggled in a lot of the game from a passing standpoint. Overall, Nick Evers was 15 for 24 with 1 INT, only 104 yards. So it was really the run game that really had a huge impact. But they would come back, strike back after the option, and score. And after UAB scored, they hit Milliner for a touchdown. That put them up 13-3. And at that point, they continued to kind of move the ball. And at the end of the half, they hit for a big one. BB hit for a long touchdown, 125 yards to score to put UConn down at that point, okay, by multiple scores. It looked bleak at that point in the game. And I tell you, it was one of the things where UConn really had to get themselves together. And Jim Moore did a great job of changing the tone of that game very quickly. And when we got into the second half, it became a thing where UConn had to really come back, and it didn't start out well in the second half. It started off after UAB. It took them some time, but UConn then drove and got the opportunity in the third period to score. So after UConn goes and scores,
their backup quarterback is.
So UConn coming out of the half after being down 24-10, UConn 23-3 comes out and scores, okay, in the third period to make it 23-10.
Their backup quarterback is in against all odds. Vignano.
And then they go down the field to get up for the first time. Doesn't matter. In the fourth, they go up top, okay.
Josiah Gathings.
To a guy that they haven't thrown a ball to a ton, but they go up top and they use the new quarterback.
Edwards finds a lane.
Edwards field the game late in the game.
It's
left
a touchdown.
To actually go up and then win the game. It was overall a fairly sloppy game for UConn as a whole from an offensive standpoint. But what was the difference in here? You had at the end of the half, you had BB scored a goal 23, but Darrell Robinson's touchdown made it 20-10. 20-10 to kick the field goal. UAB to make it 23-10. the pass from Fagano, which was the switch that UConn made that made the difference. Fagano hitting Porter, then Fagano hitting Gathings to go 23-17, 24-23 UConn, okay, and then the Cam Edwards touchdown late. Going to Fagano was a difficult, probably, choice, but it was the thing that changed the game for UConn. We've talked a lot about the fact that UConn had to go back and forth, and going to Fagano late made a difference in throwing 2 touchdowns and being able to win the game. It's interesting what's going to come up going forward with what UConn will do at the quarterback position after Fagano wins the game, throwing for 2 touchdowns after Nick Evers was knocked out of the game again. So it's a really, really interesting thing. Do they continue to take him and go off the bench with Fagano, where they're not able to really kind of prepare for them from that standpoint, or do they continue to try Evers if he's able to come back? Now, Evers has been hurt. This is the 3rd time Evers has been hurt in the game. UConn had struggled to score in multiple games with Evers at quarterback. Fagano comes in and throws dimes. Even though he was winning 5 for 12 passing, but throwing 2 touchdowns and winning the game and leading the team. Question comes forward is, what will UConn do? So coming into the next game, UConn, let's look at the schedule here real quick. So we got you. Let's see, UConn schedule. UConn next week has Syracuse, which is going to be a big game. Which, depending on Evers' injury, it's going to be a dilemma for UConn. What are they going to continue to do from a standpoint of who will they have at quarterback? The run game was back and forth a little bit, but they ended up, Cam Edwards breaking a run, Darrell Robinson scoring early in the 3rd, made a huge impact. But Pagano's passing enabled their run game. I feel like UConn may be much more of a pro-style type of team where Fagano has to go and line up at quarterback and run that power run game and then throw passes down the field. That, to me, might be where UConn is going to have the greatest impact in the game. Syracuse is going to be difficult next week. Syracuse is now, let's see, record-wise, Syracuse is, after the loss to Boston College, Syracuse is now 6-3. So Syracuse is a team that was rolling, and now has lost, I believe, 2 of the last 3. So beating Virginia Tech 38-31 in overtime, lost to Pittsburgh, getting smoked 41-13, and losing in a close game to Boston College, who's an okay team. And so UConn's really going to have to figure out, first of all, how they're going to be able to stop Kyle McCord's passing game, because in the last game he threw for 392 yards, and how they're going to stop their receivers, both of which had over 100 yards, Jackson Meeks and Aronde Gadsden. UConn's going to have to be able to combat that from a offensive standpoint. To me, it's probably going to be a shootout, and UConn has fared well in mini shootouts. We're in the 20s. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to fare in a big shootout, which looks to be the case. Syracuse has been in games 37-31, 38-31, 41-13 the last game, so it seems like that's going to be par for the course for Syracuse. I think you have a situation where Mora has really got them believing, and UConn has been able to come back several times this year. They came back against Georgia State. They came back against Rice. They almost came all the way back against Wake Forest. They came back against Temple to win. And they almost came back against Duke to win. So that's multiple games they've come back and either made it close or won the game So they've proven that they are a fourth quarter team. They're a team that can make a big difference late in the game. They have the running backs to be able to finish. When the quarterback situation is the biggest thing, and the ability to continue to stop the pass is going to be a thing, and that's Syracuse's strength. So, with the big-time quarterback that Syracuse has, I'm just curious the stats. Rushing-wise, Cameron Edwards was 11 for 82. Darrell Robinson was 13 for 59. And one touchdown, both got a touchdown. Skylar Bell was held to 5 catches for 45. Josiah Gatings was that was a breakout game for him with 6 catches for 52 and a big touchdown late in the game. Because before that game, let me just look at what Josiah had because I hadn't heard that name very much. Let's see what we got here. Just going to pull up some of these stats on UConn. So, let's get that roster. For the season, he's not even there. Gatings isn't even listed as. There we go. Okay. So Josiah's numbers right now of the year. He's also a transfer, University of Akron. Interesting. Yeah, that was the last few. He had nothing against Georgia State. Must have been hurt or something. He was out. 7 catches against Wake. He had 6 here against UAB. He's up to 26 catches on the season. He really is like a third option guy. But the third option came through huge for UConn in this game. What they will do going forward, quarterback, and what the injury of Evers is, we don't yet know. Skylar Bell has obviously been their big play receiver all year long. Skylar Bell already has Skylar Bell statistically. I think we got to figure out ways to get him the ball more. Skylar. Skylar Bell on the year has 646 yards receiving, which definitely leads UConn. Mm. 35 catches on the year, 4 touchdowns. 3 times going over 100 yards. So UConn's got a lot they're got to think about going forward from a standpoint they're going to do next week. It's funny that I'm wearing Mizzou thing talking UConn football, but what they're going to do next week, how the difference they're going to make when it comes to offensively, they have to get off to a fast start against Syracuse. If they don't get off to a fast start against Syracuse, they're going to be up Schitt's Creek because Syracuse is a team that's got a quarterback that is a proven winner when he was at Ohio State, and he's a guy that's going to throw the ball all over the yard. So UConn's going to have to be able to figure out a way to get pressure on him and force him into some bad throws like Pitt did. That's the key. Pitt got a lot of pressure on him, forced him into bad throws, made all the difference. UConn's going to have to do that to be able to put them in some bad situations. They did that to Kitna late, and it made all the difference. Kitna could not get down the field in tight situations at the end of the game. UConn's defense clamped down, and stopped Kitna. And that's the thing that's going to happen in this game going forward in order to have a chance to win against Syracuse. If UConn already is bowl eligible, UConn already is a team that is bowl eligible and has the ability to go to a bowl game. They win against Syracuse, they will go to a fantastic bowl game. That's the most important thing, and we'll see that make all the difference going forward. But we'll see how UConn comes out and how they do this week with that from a standpoint, and we'll see what UConn can do. Now, I can tell you this: if UConn does not come off with a good start against Syracuse, they may be too far behind the 8 pole to be able to come back. Syracuse is a well-coached team with outstanding coaches in a program that's on the rise. And they have had an exceptional year this year, where in the past years they've had years where they've really struggled. They are going to be a team that's really going to do well. So UConn has to be ready to go from this standpoint. I think UConn's got to try and slow the game down if it's at all possible. Because in the shootout, I think it's going to be a problem for them against Syracuse. And they've got to be able to get pressure against the quarterback of Syracuse if they're going to have a shot. They've got to get the ball down the field to Skylar Bell, but they've got to be able to run the ball effectively. Running the ball effectively will be the difference in the opportunities. And again, we talked about this last time. They have to get some plays that throws the other team off, reverses, some gadget play here or there that can be a home run shot that will make all the difference, and that will make a big, big deal. And I think that it's critical. It's critical for UConn to make this impact and beat Syracuse if they can. If UConn can hang tough, they're going to beat Syracuse in the first half. If they can stay close, they'll beat Syracuse. If they let the game get away, it's going to be too much for them to catch up. Just like Duke was, just like Wake Forest was. They can't let it get 2 or 3 touchdowns. A touchdown, 10 points, they can come back from. When you get to 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, it's going to be an issue, and it's going to be something that UConn's really going to have to fight to control on defense. And they've got to be able to time the blitzes to be able to do that. I think Cam Edwards' big run at the end of the game made a huge difference to finish him out. I feel like the running backs, Darrell Robinson, Cam Edwards, when they utilize their running backs, they can finish teams off if they have a lead. Those running backs are hungry. They have the desire to run the ball, and they will finish guys off. And that's a big, big difference over all those teams that everybody else they play. Like UConn is one of the unique teams that have multiple running backs that can finish another team off. And it's really interesting to see how the offensive line takes pride in the fact that they have a chance to win the game, that they're going to come after it and win that game. Overall in the year, let me just see UConn football stats here. So UConn rushing as a team, they're averaging 200 yards rushing a game, where their opponent's averaging 137. Passing, they're averaging for over 201, while they're averaging giving up 200. So teams have been a little bit more effective passing against them than running. But running the ball, and really it's a tribute to their defense, that they are keeping teams to 137 yards a game. Points per game, UConn's averaging 31. Opponent's averaging 21. Completion percentage, I mean, there's areas to improve in the UConn passing game. Third down conversions, 35%. That's not great. The opponents are at 29%, which is just a phenomenal job by the defense. Fourth down conversions, 50%. Opponents at 42%. UConn's ahead in the fumble category. They're plus of that. Turnovers. Red zone touchdowns, 20 for 34. Red zone scores, 31 for 34. UConn is, which is phenomenal. 38 for 38 on PATs. UConn has 19 sacks in the year. Individuals. Darrell Robinson's rushed for 654. Cam for 546. Mel Brown, 520. This is a 3 running back system, which keeps these guys fresh, and they've embraced it, and they're running exceptionally well. Skylar Bell, we talked about, with 646 yards passing. He's the number 1 guy. Sheffield, the number 2 guy with 36 catches. And Josiah Gatings at number 3. And those are 3 guys that really go to. Lewis, the tight end, has done a great job. Shamar Porter and spots have done a great job. Passing. Quarterback. What do we do there? Our passing percentage overall is 58%. But Nick Everett's 54, Fagano's 56. Fagano's 13 touchdowns thrown to 3 interceptions. Nick Everett's is 5 touchdowns thrown to 5 interceptions. Joe Fagano is still leading in passing despite not playing in that many games very much, other than 1, 2. He played in 4 games. Leads the team in passing. UConn's got a tough decision coming up. In order to take on Syracuse, they're going to have to get that quarterback situation worked out. That's going to be the key. For Husky Talk, he's Coach Schuman. Until next time, see you soon.